Hey everyone, it's Hurley from Inklips. Today I have a bunch of card examples showing inlaid but like raised die cutting. It's a little hard to explain. I'm using a bunch of products from Winnie and Walter, including those two stamp sets with the awesome little critters hugging, which I think is awesome for friendship or kid cards or things like that. Also that precious die cut to create all of them, and those scripty font sentiments to finish off the cards. So for 3 of the cards today, I used Copic markers, and for 3 of them, I used Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and also some are going upright and some are sideways. You guys can choose how you really want to do this, but I stamped down some of the images using Copic friendly black ink, and then I stamped some down using waterproof ink. This way, nothing will bleed while we're coloring, and both the inks will be correct. And I also stamped the watercolor ones on Bristol, so that'll be a lot smoother, and the Copic ones just with regular cardstock, so that they all have their own papers that work best for them. Now I will admit coloring is not my strong suit, but I love using Copic markers because they make it super simple, so I decided on 3 of the cards today I'm using Copics, and on 3 I'm going to kind of challenge myself a little bit more with the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens, and it doesn't look too great in the beginning with the zigs, but it does end up turning out really cool, and I'm glad that I switched off my coloring combinations, and I'm deciding to do that more often to kind of get out of my comfort zone with coloring and color a little bit more often and a little bit kind of harder images and things like that. However, today's are really easy to color in. I used some simple blending like I always do on these cards. However, I found that most of the animals were gray and brown, so I needed to come up with some unique color combinations to make them kind of different for each one. And so for this one, I'm using some grays and then I'm mixing it in with some browns. For that first elephant that you saw, I definitely added some like purplish kind of tones to it and used some of those kind of gray markers. And then for this bunny here, I'm adding kind of a pinkish tone of the brown. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't have many Copics at all, but when you mix them all together like this and you use some of the same markers in every single one and then you just add a couple of different markers, it makes it a lot easier to get a bunch of different looks using just a couple markers. And then for these giraffes, I just used the same color combo that I did for the monkey, just the regular brown one that I have, and just did their spots really dark. So then for these kind of cards, I'm using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. I find these work best on Bristol cardstock like I'm using today. And I'm also going to be using the Wink of Stella or the other shimmer pen from Spectrum Noir, using them to blend it out. This will give it a lot of shimmer, but it'll also blend out super nicely on this Bristol cardstock. And for these, I just like to add a little bit of color where the darkest part or the shadow would be, and then blend it out from there and kind of keep that darker line though, so that it gives that nice shadow and the nice contrast, like a Copic marker kind of would. Now for this bear, I decided to give it kind of like a fur texture, so I'm doing a little dotting motion, and then when I colored in with the Spectrum Noir shimmer pen, I'm not going to blend it out super well. I'm going to kind of do the dotting motion as I'm blending as well. That way it keeps that nice texture for the fur and you get a really awesome look. And like I said, I'm kind of just playing around with these and exploring. And then for that cat, I did a weird mixture of brown and gray, and I wouldn't recommend that for these Spectrum or Zig markers when you're blending it all together because it makes it a weird green color, and so that one didn't turn out super well, but I definitely like the end result. So now we're going to channel our inner Laura Baston with some ink blending here. So I'm just adding a little piece of frog tape down the center of my card, right where the critters are sitting, so this will act as a nice little mask and a crisp line for the ground. And then I'm going to start my ink blending here. I'm tapping off some ink off to the side, just so it's a nice light color that we're going to get, but it's still super bright. And I'm going to just ink blend right below the critters. It might not look like a lot of color when you're first laying it down, and that's kind of a good thing, because once you pull off that piece of tape, it'll actually look like a ton of color against that white, especially with that nice crisp line that you have there, and it'll create the critters a nice colorful ground to sit on, which gives a lot of more interest to the card, and it creates some really nice color, so when you die cut it out, you'll have some nice interest on the bottom there. So once you pull off this tape, you get a really stunning effect, and I love the look of it, and I'm just using a bunch of different bright colors for each one of these that kind of go along with the critters colors as well, which are mostly neutrals and grays and browns like that. So then I'm going to add my precious die cut. I'm doing it kind of half on the critters and half on the ground for each one. You can move it up and down to your preference. I'm going to run that through my die cutting machine and make sure that once you pull it out, you save all the little pieces on the inside. I actually got a little lazy and didn't keep the innermost pieces, but I kept the die cut. And I'm going to be adding some tape runner onto my card vase here in a nice generous amount right underneath where that die cut is going to be. So make sure you're kind of lining it up with your card panel that you just created. And then I'm going to actually just stick that card panel down onto the vase exactly where it's going to go in the end. You're going to want to make sure it's really nicely lined up here. That way in the end, you'll see your die cut nice and straight through and everything will line up perfectly. Then I'm going to stick that die cut on the inside, push it down really hard because you're going to want to make sure that it sticks right into that tape there. Then I'm peeling off this top panel, and we're going to add some dimension to your card panel so that it pops off the surface, and then you'll see that die cut right through with the rest of your design. So I'm adding on some fun foam here, which is nice for mailing, and it saves you on some of the foam tape that you might be using up so you don't use all of it. And you're going to want to make sure you're using a nice and strong adhesive so that everything sticks together super well in the end. And then I'm going to just line everything right back up, and it should line up perfectly and just have a nice raised surface over it so you can see the design right through, but you can see the nice die cut word through, which I just think is awesome. You're going to want to make sure you put a lot of that foam right around the word as well so it doesn't like collapse in on itself. And that is kind of the finished product. I'm just going to show you guys one more time how to do it. It's really easy to do, and I think it's just a super fun look to it instead of just completely inlating the die cut, which you could do with a different color cardstock if you wanted to. I could see using like a black cardstock there or something. So I'm lining everything up onto a top folding card base here for this card, and then I'm going to line the die cut up right under that adhesive. And make sure it's stuck before you pull the card base off, and then you can add some foam underneath it so that it pops right up off your card base. Add some adhesive onto that foam and finish everything off by just adding your card panel on. It's actually super simple of a technique. You can add sequins or anything to embellish it, like little hearts or anything like that. And then before we finish off here, I want to make every sentiment different and every sentiment kind of stand out by itself. So I'm using that stamp set that I showed earlier with the nice script font handwriting, and all these sentiments kind of go along with the precious, or you can kind of fit them in there. They're all kind of love and friendship sentiments, so I decided to just pour some white embossing powder over those, and then I'm going to heat set that as well. I did that off camera though, so you're not going to quite see it here, but it'll give a nice crisp white sentiment on that black cardstock, which is a great contrast there. And then I'm going to go around with my spring assist scissors, which is just awesome and really easy to cut out these sentiments, just leaving a nice little border around it as well. And I know there aren't dies for these, but I find it super simple to just cut these little sentiments out, and it doesn't take much time at all. I find that moving your scissors around instead of moving the paper also helps a lot if you need that. So then I'm just taking some foam tape and adding them all around the cards in different places around that precious sentiment and around those little critters. I have a hard time putting the sentiments crooked like that, but I really find that it fits with these kind of cards, it fits with those little images and gives a nice, awesome look, and I kind of just move the sentiments around to make them fit on each card and kind of fit them in the little nooks and crannies. So that finishes up all of today's cards. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a comment down below letting me know which is your favorite card from this whole thing, and if you guys really enjoyed this technique and might want to try it out in the future. Let me know if you guys like when I create a bunch of cards like this. I find it easier to kind of teach a technique and show using all the different products and things like that, and it's a lot more fun for me to work with everything and make a bunch of different examples instead of just one card to kind of embody the whole technique, which I think just doesn't work nearly as well. And also I love the shimmer on some of these cards that it gives off, and just the simple Copic coloring as well. You can go so far when embellishing these cards, but I really just love the clean and simple look that it gives off, and it's just stunning. If you guys want to see more of my videos, please click those on screen right now. There's 2 that are recommended for you guys. Also, if you want to click that subscribe button, don't forget to click my little face on screen right now. And if you want to head over to my blog where there will be much more information, pictures, and a full product list, don't forget to click that little Inklips logo there as well. And I'll see you guys very soon in another card making video. Have a great day. Bye.